Hello,
Hi.
Imogen Parry. Welcome to From a Distance.
Thank you so
Where,
much for having
where
me.
exactly are you?
I'm in my flat in South London.
South London. All
It-
right, so not too far away. I'm in the
Yeah.
Forest of Dean, on
Oh,
the
nice.
kind of near to the Welsh border. Yeah.
Lovely.
Um, it's fair to say we've never met in real life.
Not
We've
really.
we have probably we have met in real life, but once
Mhm.
and very briefly after a concert in 2019 in Leipzig, where I just said to you, that was incredible. And it was an incredible concert. How many concerts had you done by the time you got to Leipzig?
So Leipzig was about halfway through my first year, uh,
Yeah.
mid 2019, I think. Um, and
It was kind
only
of Mayish, wasn't it? Mayish,
yeah,
yeah.
but I was kind of thrown in at the deep end when I first joined the Swingles, with a 4-week US tour. That
Yeah.
was my first thing. So
Wow.
I got used to it really quickly, which was a good thing. And then that summer was really fun, just kind of dotting around here and there,
Yeah.
some UK shows and Germany, and
Yeah.
really
I
fun.
I only ask you and put you right on the spot because that show was so polished and so, of course, it's a show that you've probably done before and done times before, but it was under this scrutiny of a very critical a cappella audience. That a cappella, the Amarcord Leipzig Festival, the a cappella festival, just brings people from all over, and they know about a cappella. But it was an amazing show. It looked like you had been doing it all your life. So, I mean, credit to you. It's fantastic.
Oh, thank you.
Um, I was just going to start by asking you about your background. You know, what brought you up to 2018? To
Mhm.
just fill us in a bit about your background, your musical beginnings, because it's not the most obvious musical beginning
Right.
educationally.
Sure. So I grew up in a very musical family. Um, just music was around all the time. I have two siblings, and they both play and sing a lot. And I grew up without wanting to kind of clang too much, but I grew up listening to the Swingle Singers CDs,
Yeah,
with my dad on them.
yeah.
And so
And
I,
for those of you who don't go back that far,
yeah.
Ben Parry.
So yeah, my dad, Ben Parry, was in the Swingle Singers
Mm,
in the late 80s, early 90s.
yeah,
And I just thought they were so cool. And I thought he was so cool for being in it. Um, so I've joked a lot about how I was practicing for my Swingles audition for 20 years, um, because I used to sing along and I knew all the classics. So yeah, I grew up listening to a bunch of stuff, but always came back to vocal music. I have to say, I played instruments and loved it, but I just always came back to singing. And throughout school and university in particular, I got really into the performance side, and I did a lot of musical theatre, and I sang in choirs. Um, and then, yeah, 2018, I auditioned for the group. And for me, it was just the perfect combination of everything I loved, because we sing such a huge variety of things, from jazz to pop to classical. So
yeah,
it was kind of the best of all my worlds.
yeah. And wait, did you do a lot of a cappella singing or singing? I know you've done a lot of choir work, but
Mhm.
did you do singing up in? You were at Glasgow,
I was,
and
yeah.
you spent some time in the States as well.
I did, yeah.
Did you do any a cappella singing there, or was?
Actually, not in the States. I didn't get the chance. I kind of signed up to all the theatre programs, and that took over.
Yeah,
But the a cappella scene in the US is huge,
yeah,
obviously. So I couldn't quite fit both in. But I would say through singing in choirs, things like the Rodolphus Eton choral courses and things.
Sure.
I always loved the smaller groups and the close harmony stuff.
Yeah.
I just had a real spark for it.
And prior to joining the Swingle Singers, did you do any professional choir work? You know, we're quite famed in England for having all our little kind of paid gigs and choirs, and a lot of people doing the same gigs with different names. Did you do any of that scene, or were you straight onto it with the Swingles?
I think a few here and there, possibly kind of chamber choir gigs and things, mostly in London, but I didn't really do any paid stuff when I was a student. But I got into the group straight after graduating, so
that's amazing.
I mean, yeah, it was pretty amazing.
Yeah,
it blew my mind.
I mean, it's a huge that the Swingles got this huge history. I mean, I come from, you know, spending a long time being in the King Singers, and we used to think we had a huge history. But actually, when you look beneath the surface of the Swingles, they go back a really long way. And can you tell us a little bit? I mean, you know the whole story, but take us back to 1960s in France and tell us how the whole thing started.
Yeah, so Ward Swingle was an American living in France, and he got together with some friends, really. It kind of all happened by accident, which I love. And they were passionate jazz singers, and they got together originally with a drum and bass and keys little band. And one day, as a vocal exercise, Ward Swingle thought that they could sing through some Bach fugues. And so it came this jazz style, what we say is the baba-da-ba-da, Swingle scat singing of classical music, of the Bach. And they put together a Christmas album for their friends as Christmas presents.
Yeah, not a commercial, as a kind of a nice thing to do.
Not. Yeah, so they put it together just for their friends, and it just completely took off. And then Ward moved to London and set up a kind of second generation group with some people from London. And the name has changed a few times. So that original group in London was Swingle 2. Yeah. They went back to the Swingle Singers and the Swingles, and now we're the Swingles again. So
yeah. And that first group was Les Swingles, wasn't it?
Les Swingles, yeah.
And there was a group even before that he was involved with, Les Double Six.
Yeah.
It's just an amazing history. I was born in the 60s, so I was born at this kind of late 60s. I was born in 66.
Cool.
And actually, it's my birthday today, so I'm kind of yeah, thank you. Yeah, I'm feeling fairly kind of old and young at the same time, thinking back to the 1960s.
That's lovely.
Yeah, looking back, I read something about the Grammys that Ward and those early singers won. You know, between 1963 and 1970, it's something like 5 or 6 Grammys.
Yeah, they pretty much won 5 in a row in 2 or 3 years.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah, I can't speak for them, but I think it was quite a shock at the time as well. They just didn't expect it. And things like Best New Artist, Best New Album, like the big ones.
Yeah.
Which is really cool.
Yeah, I mean, really cool. And of course, we are used to that sound, that Swingle sounds, and we are used to the doobie-doos. I think those Bach pieces were the well-tempered clavier. I mean, I read somewhere else that they used to practice their sight reading by singing through the well-tempered clavier. I was thinking, wow, that's pretty cool. They must have been pretty good to practice their sight reading.
Yeah.
Interesting. So tell me about how you found, how does the Swingles, I know you've had even recently a more recent change, but tell us how you were introduced to the group, you know, that there's a job going, and how does that whole work? Because, you know, as a cappella fans, we see groups changing and they evolve, and it's a strength of of the system, that people bring new ideas and all that. So sometimes it's tragic that people have to leave, but usually new blood, everybody says that, brings something new to and keeps the whole thing going. So did the Swingles advertise? How did they call you personally? Tell us about that.
Yeah, I mean, you've got it right. I think the group always says bringing in someone new, a new voice is such an opportunity, and it's not about directly replacing the person before, because you can't replace anyone. So it's about bringing in someone new. And as I said, I was a student in Glasgow at the time, and I was having that post-graduation freak out about what to do. And I knew I wanted to kind of base in London, and was considering going down the acting route, wasn't really sure it was for me. And I applied for some masters and things, and it wasn't really working out. And I was a bit sad about it all.
Feeling dejected.
Yeah, I was, and just lost, and I didn't know. I knew I loved singing, but I didn't really know if I could do it as a career. And yeah, I've been keeping up with the Swingles. I was a big fan, so I knew that they were still going. And it was actually my dad said that someone was leaving, and I thought, okay, this can't be real. Just as I leave university. So I'd met a few of them on the music scene before. So I sent Joe Goldsmith-Eaton a message and said, I hope this isn't insensitive, but I hear that Claire Wheeler, the alto, was deciding to leave. And she said, yeah, we'll post about auditions shortly. And so they did, and I applied, and I got an email saying that they wanted to sing with me in person. So I go to the studio, and I'd memorized all this music.
And presumably everybody doesn't get to sing with them in person. There's presumably a filtering, because the whole world might want to sing with the Swingles in person.
Right. So the process for me, it's slightly different for each person, but I had to send in some quick voice recordings of myself, and then they whittled it down that way. So they went through everyone's, and I don't know how many people they had, but I think they only heard maybe 20 people in person.
Yeah.
So from those recordings, they decided to sing with me some more. And I had to memorize 15 scores to sing on microphone in a studio with the group, who I loved so much. So it was definitely a scary moment.
Yeah. And presumably this is in between gigs. They've just got a little time where they're doing these auditions, fitting them in, and
right. Yeah. And I actually, it's good that you said that, because I didn't know that at the time. I kind of thought that my audition was really important, but of course they were touring all around the world. Yeah. So yeah, I show up at the studio, and it's all recorded, and I sing through the stuff, and they did invite me back for a more informal rehearsal type audition. So we sat around and we worked on some stuff rather than just singing through everything once. And then a couple of weeks later, Joe called me up and said that they wanted to pick me.
Yeah, an amazing phone call, I bet.
It was terrifying.
Yeah, I bet. Hey, there are some parallels, and although we've got different backgrounds, I also right at the beginning, I was in a kind of a fallow period. I'd gone to the Guildhall School of Music to study singing. I was going to be an opera singer and all that sort of thing. And but I got kind of slightly disillusioned with it, and I decided I was going to leave the Guildhall. And instead, I was going to go and pick up a place that I'd been offered a few years earlier at the Royal Academy of Music. And in waiting for that to happen, having walked out the Guildhall mid-year in February, and waiting, just going to have a few singing lessons with people at the academy to see who I liked, I was recommended for an audition with the King Singers, which is really odd, because I was kind of singing, doing church work and all that sort of, trying to earn a meager crust in London as a very young singer. But I used to sing in a group at down in Knightsbridge with Olive Simpson, who was one of the very early English groups, Swingles.
Yeah.
And Olive Simpson was one of the kind of people the King Singers, when they were making any changes, would call, because she was on the scene. She was sort of on that sort of session singing scene. And I got my audition through an old Swingle. And I've always said that, I don't think I would have heard about the job, actually. And I had to be recommended to even get an audition. You couldn't just kind of ring them and say, I'd fancy an audition. There was no advertising. So it was kind of similar, but it was, they were my old-time idols as well. In my teens, I'd listen to the King Singers. That was kind of what I did. It's kind of interesting, isn't it? That, and you suddenly join a group and become a creative force with it. So tell us about those first few months.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. It's totally surreal. I was pinching myself constantly, and it took a while. In fact, it's probably still the case that I'm getting used to finding my voice and asserting myself in the group. Musically, I think I picked it up quite quickly, because I like to pick things up quickly. I'm a good mimic, and I adapt quite quickly. So, and I loved the rep so much, so I learnt it like that. But the other side of it is the business side of things. We run the group ourselves, and they had to say to me a few times, you've got an equal voice here, and I just couldn't quite believe that for a long time, that I was there making decisions for the Swingles. I couldn't cope with that. But as I said, the first thing I did was this US tour, and I just loved it even more than I thought I would. The traveling side of things, I thought that would maybe be something I didn't really enjoy, but I loved it, going from place to place, seeing different venues every night, getting ready for the show, putting on your costume and things. It was just a total dream. And what surprised me the most was, after a couple of shows, it felt so normal. It felt like I'd been doing it forever. And I had moments on stage where I would think, is this happening? Am I on stage singing with my heroes? But the rest of the time, it was just like I was kind of floating on this cloud, and it was really happening. But as I said, I think I eased into it quite quickly. Yeah.
It's been a really tricky time, hasn't it? With COVID and our various lockdowns, and the music industry, full stop. And it didn't go unnoticed, certainly to me, that somebody who had joined the group, and I saw back in May 2019, looking like you've been in it forever, and singing so beautifully, Midge. It was fantastic. You sing a lead so fantastically well. More about that later. It hasn't gone unnoticed that you've probably spent as much time in lockdown in the Swingle Singers as you did in that first year touring. That's correct, isn't it? And it's kind of coming up there now, probably. But you're keeping relevant, and you're working and you're creating. And one of the tracks we wanted to feature, and hopefully we can have a little talk about now, is Weather to Fly. A lot of groups have found it quite difficult to make themselves available in lockdown, and I think probably the way the Swingle Singers work, and the way you're used to creating music, you're probably more at home to getting on board with that, with the technology and listening, compared to a group, say, like the King Singers, who are very much kind of listening out of one ear. I was always used to hearing everything coming this way and balancing. Tell us a little bit about the Whether to Fly, and arrangement, the whole background to that song.
We had the drive and time on our hands, one little room and the biggest of plans. The days were shaping up frosty and bright, perfect weather to fly, perfect weather to fly. Pounding the streets where my father's feet still ring from the walls, we'd sing in the doorways or bicker and row, just figuring how we were wired inside. Perfect weather to fly. So
you said that we are used to singing on microphone and with in-ears. So that has been a complete blessing throughout lockdown, because we're used to recording ourselves to a click. And way back last March or April, when things started happening, I feel like the UK lockdown kind of happened in stages, and we could feel things slipping away. So last March we were in the process of recording a new album in a studio, and each day someone would go into the studio and feel a little bit more uneasy about it. And so we decided a week or so before Boris Johnson said cut the whole thing, to stop, to press pause on the recording, and we all locked down. And after a while we said, right, we should do one of these lockdown split screen videos that everyone's doing. And it seems funny now, but at the time we really thought this is important. And I know we're sick of the split screen ones now, but actually Weather to Fly is a really important memory for us, because we were all in different places. We are used to spending so much time together, and we had to communicate not together, and that was really hard. We recorded it all, and it was the first in a series, because we then decided to make a video a month, basically the whole of last year. And Weather to Fly we chose as the first one for the lyric, one little room and the biggest of plans, because we had the drive and time on our hands, because we had a lot of time on our hands, and we've been filling it. We've used it as an opportunity to explore new things, and we've knuckled down. We've gotten used to it. The one thing we haven't adjusted to is not being in the same room for a long time. Because that's how we operate. We rehearse, we have our meetings, a lot of groups are the same. I really miss.
And also that interaction with the people who love to come and see you as well. That interaction that keeps you believing in what you're doing is making a mark. We can always see comments under videos, but there's nothing like a live concert to keep us going, And I know that, speaking with some of my relatives in the Kingsingers now, that they've done concert series and try to keep alive by doing that. But it's different when you're performing a whole program to a camera. It's quite difficult to believe. Hey, Midge, tell us a little bit about the lineup of the group right now, because it's refreshingly international, isn't it? When I say that, two of you, we've got somebody from the US and an Italian, and tell us a little bit about each person.
So Jo Goldsmith-Eaton has been in the group the longest. Mm-hmm. She's hitting her 15-year mark.
Wow.
And that's the longest in the whole of Swingle history, apart from Ward Swingle himself. and she's incredible. She's still she's my idol. And most of us are based from London or England, and we're a London-based group. But so there's Ollie Griffiths from Bristol, but based in London.
Yeah.
Ed Randall from London. John Smith is from New York and is my flatmate.
Right.
And Federica is from Italy. Yeah. And until recently, we had Kevin, a Canadian, in the group. So it was super international.
Kevin Fox.
Last year, Kevin Fox,
Yeah.
And last year, Jamie Wright from London joined the group in March.
Tell us a little bit about Jamie. What's his background, and was it the same journey into the group as you had?
Similar, but actually, you reminded me when you said that you wanted to be an opera singer and you wanted to go to the academy. Jamie was training in opera at the Royal Academy of Music. I think he'd completed his course a few years ago, and he's one of these musicians who can do anything. And he was doing lots and lots of different things. He was running his own business and running his own choir and singing and freelancing. And he auditioned for us. He had a different process from me. He actually did some trial gigs with us as part of his audition in Berlin and a little UK tour. Yeah. And then his first show was January last year. And then March we locked down.
Yeah.
He spent all of his time officially in the group in lockdown. And I know he's chatted to us about it a lot, and he's just been so positive about it.
Good.
And I think he's really thrived because he is so techie. So we kind of turned to him for all the creation of our lockdown projects because he's so great.
Amazing. It's so good that somebody so new can bring so much to a group so early on. Those boots, Kevin Fox, those boots were quite big to fill. I remember seeing him I saw him in your show in Leipzig, but I also saw when you appeared in the Gewandhaus, and him doing the audience reaction and getting everybody joining in, and that guy oozed music, in a way kind of greats like Bobby McFerrin were oozing music. It just came out. What's he doing now?
Yeah, Kevin is living in London, or kind of just outside London, with his partner Liz, who sang with the group as well before I joined. I kind of replaced Liz and Claire. Liz was covering for Claire, and she's fabulous. And they're making music together at home. Kevin has done a lot of composition throughout lockdown, something that he said that he's never had the chance to do before, being on the road for so long. Yeah. And I've seen them a couple of times in the session singing world, and it's lovely to see them. But as you said, Kevin was in the group for 12 years as well. So those are some big boots to fill. He's fantastic. Yeah.
And your very top soprano, Federica, has got an astonishingly high voice. How does that come? How does an Italian get to hear about a job in the Swingles? How did she join the group? Do you know that bit of the history?
Yeah. Federica had never sung a cappella music before. So apparently I wasn't in the group, but she showed up to her audition, blew everyone away, and afterwards said that she'd never sung a cappella before. And John Smith was furious. He said, "You've just done it better than I do, and I've been training for it my whole life, and you've never done it before." She saw an advert on Instagram. So the advert was posted on social media. And at the time, she was part of a musical theatre academy in Italy.
Yeah.
And I think a word got around and a few people told her about it. And she sent in her recordings, and she flew over to London and made an impression.
Well, it's incredible because the Italians have a great choral tradition. There's lots of stuff going on there chorally, but trying to list on one hand the number of a cappella groups who are making it professionally is quite difficult. In England we're quite blessed with all that tradition, but yeah, I was really impressed in that concert. It was fantastic. Hey, this the discography of the group is huge.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it goes right back to those, anyone for Mozart, right through. Do you have a personal favorite? Does it feature your dad? Are you on it? I mean, for a start, I don't know any group who've had two generations in the same group. That's how long this group's been around.
Yeah. There are definitely some classics that I always go back and listen to. There's the Around the World album with a lot of traditional kind of folk tunes on it. And I do really love Dad's arrangements. I think they just make me smile. I would say the album I've probably played on repeat the most is Mood Swings from, I'm trying to remember the year, early 2000s maybe. And I know that Joe Forbes Lestrange was the kind of pioneer of that album.
Yeah.
And I think that sound world, that crossover between jazz and a cappella music is where I sit most comfortably. And I just love every track on that album. Yeah.
I mean, that discography is immense. I was just reading through it this morning. I was just thinking, gosh, it covers everything, doesn't it? And lots of people have passed through the Swingle Singers doors. I mean, I remember when I joined the King Singers, your dad was in the Swingle Singers. We did some early festivals where we crossed paths. We went to Utrecht. There was, for a few years, there was a festival called the Voices Festival in Amsterdam. Big, all the a cappella groups went to it. And it was quite a nerve-wracking experience because you got to kind of perform and do your thing, but you knew the other groups were around, your worst critics.
Yeah.
But we used to share lots of stories in those early days. It was a lot of fun. Hey, on mics and technology, we can't talk about the Swingle Singers without talking about Hugh Walker. My background is singing on mic, and it's just the people in the group. But he is a very much a member of your group, isn't he?
Definitely.
And I think I remember immediately after your concert finished, and I just kind of, wow. He was the first person I saw. I went to the back, and I just went and chatted to him for a minute just to say, because you can tell that he's doing an amazing job.
Yeah. Just
because it goes so smoothly on the stage. Now, I've seen mic'd concerts that haven't gone smoothly, and before in-ear monitors, and where sounds were just horrendous. I've seen some real car crashes of a cappella concerts, but that was so smooth. And that room actually was probably, if I was thinking about doing a concert, it would be my worst kind of room to do a relatively low ceiling. It's kind of an old 1930s conference hall or something. I don't know. It's not there
like that.
But for you guys, the sound worked amazingly well in there. So tell us a little bit about that relationship with your sound guy, because in some ways he makes or breaks the group. And tell us a little bit about where mics and sound systems in halls almost start to work against you, when the halls are so good for their own sound that it becomes a kind of a little bit of a battle in a way.
Yeah, that's a very good question. So for starters, Hugh Walker is a legend, and we always say that the sound engineer is an extra member of the group. He's the 8th member of the Swingles, or before, when it was 8 singers, he was the 9th member. We just wouldn't sound the way we do without Hugh. And we've been working with another sound designer more recently, called Max Hunter, who also has worked with Hugh a lot, and we just love working with them. They're fabulous. And yeah, about the room that we sing in, the way it works is the sound engineer will go first and set up the room. Then we have a 2-hour sound check before a gig, where we top and tail things, and we have our own mixes in our monitors. So before, when they sang on monitors on the stage, you just got the mix that was in them. But we have our
and kind of doing that
exactly, and just kind of try and listen out for things. And hope that it was the same for every song, I guess. But we can control it ourselves for different people and for each individual track. It is just amazing.
You get in here pitches as well, so you get beautiful, clean, wow, where did that come from starts.
Exactly, yeah.
So the technology really working for you.
Yeah, it's incredible. And as you said, when Hugh's at the back of the room, and you wouldn't really know, he's so inconspicuous. And he just, we wouldn't sound that good without the sound engineer.
He came across as a very modest chap who was doing an amazing job back there. And
when we that's a good question about having when a room works against us, because when we sing in a really lovely room with a lovely acoustic, it's actually a lot harder. And one thing that I notice is that I start to really enjoy the ambience in the room and sing differently to how we have in rehearsals. The way we rehearse is really detailed, to try and get the sound across on microphone, and you kind of have to sing exactly the same way, because then Hugh will work his magic. Whereas if you start enjoying the echoes in the room and singing out a bit more, because we don't have to sing very loudly on microphone, then it changes the effect and it makes things a lot harder.
Tell us a little bit about, I know that the Swingle Singers historically have always had a nominated or titled musical director, and some groups don't. Some groups are kind of in that kind of try to be trying to get to the end result by just kind of talking it over. I think historically the Swingles have had musical directors because there were 8 singers. It'd be nice to know about that decision to go down to 7. 2011?
Yes.
Yeah. But tell us a little bit about that role of musical director, how it's worked historically, how it works now.
So the group has tried different combinations of things throughout the years. They've had a musical director in the group, as you said. They've had an external manager at different times, and they've tried lots of different things. And I don't really know when they started doing it, because it was before I joined. But now we work in teams, and we don't just have one musical director, but we have a music team. And it's the same importance as the marketing team and the finance team, and it's a combination of different singers in the group. And
does that change every so often? Does it move around?
At the moment, no. But it's only been a couple of years since I joined. But I'm sure it could. If someone was desperate to be on the music team, we could shift things around, because it's our decision. And the music team does everything from running rehearsals to deciding the rep list, to running the sound checks, to scoring, to arranging, to everything. But even though we have the music team, it's definitely a collaborative thing. If someone wanted to say something, there's no power or dictatorship. So we just kind of work together, but it's about having someone overseeing things.
Yeah. In fact, similar ways, certainly in my time in the King Singers, they used to be, if we were leading on, somebody might lead on a project and might bring repertoire and stuff, but it was a kind of a bit of a Tupperware party, a real jumble sale of ideas. And sometimes when we had people who came to rehearsals, especially in the States, students might come in and sit on a rehearsal. They were really disappointed that we just kind of talked and looked kind of grumpy with each other and did a few cadences, and then that was it. And people said, when do you guys learn the music? You just talked. But that's really a part of the process, isn't it? Is trusting people around you and getting to know what will happen. And talking is a huge part of that process. I wanted to ask you a little bit about what makes a group decide to kind of quite radical to go down to 7 singers from 8 singers, because that had been the norm of the group for a long time.
Yeah.
Tell us a little about that. Lucy Bailey left and was not replaced.
Lucy Potterton was singing alto 2, and they did audition people. And to put it simply, the decision was 7 people made more sense in many ways, in terms of booking hotel rooms, booking flights. With the sound engineer, they were now 8 people, and that's a nice kind of round number, rather than 9 and always having 4 and 5. And when they sat down and looked at the arrangements, the alto 2 part doubled so many notes in the alto 1 and the tenor 1 part. So when they divided it up between the other parts, it didn't feel like they were missing anything. And actually the sound felt more full with 7 singers, which is surprising. But I think because of the notes being doubled so much and this part just kind of singing what other people were singing, when you split it up and divide it, it was a more balanced sound. And it definitely works having, now that we've got Federica, Joanna and myself, the 3 lady parts, the balance is fine with us and 4 male singers.
Dare I say, and I just wonder whether actually it also brings a different kind of clarity to the Swingles sound. I don't know, but sometimes more is, I know the group has survived and been famous and creative with 8 singers, but sometimes when you pare things down a little bit, you can have an extra clarity. I know that some of our most beautiful sounds were not when all 6 of us were singing.
Exactly.
When you have 4 or 5 part pieces.
And that's not just, it didn't sound fabulous with 8 singers. The group before us sounded immense. But yeah, because the Swingle sound is so pure, it just helped kind of leave a breath of fresh air and leave some space with that part missing.
Yeah, and I think it does. I wanted to talk a little bit about another song we're going to feature, Goodbye England. And you have a fantastic lead in this.
Red scarf was warming your throat. Winter was on us at the end of my nose, and I'll never love England more than when covered in snow. But a friend of mine says it's good to hear that you believe in love, even if set in fear. Well, I'll hold you there, brother, and set you straight. I only believe true love is frail and willing to break. I will come back here, bring me back when I'm old. I want to lay here.
The video. Just tell us about that. On the video it says "Goodbye England" bracket covered in snow.
Yeah, so it's a song by the British singer-songwriter Laura Marling, who many members of the group listen to a lot. She's just got this amazing easiness about her, and the songs she writes are so beautiful. And we did a Christmas live stream in December, just past, and we were looking for a new wintry arrangement. So we chose this Laura Marling song, and Ed Randall did an arrangement for the group.
It's a beautiful arrangement.
It's stunning. I remember the first time he brought it to us, and often when someone brings a new arrangement, there are some tweaks, and we sing through it once and we think, oh, actually that would work better there, or that person would sound better on that part. And this was just perfect the first time.
Yeah.
It was really amazing. And we sang it at our Christmas concert in Snape Maltings. And it was like the missing piece of the puzzle. It was really just a treat to sing.
Tell us about Ed as an arranger. Is he one of a few arrangers in the group, or is he mainly doing most of your stuff? Or tell me, are you using external arrangers?
Yeah, so on paper, everyone in the group arranges and writes and contributes.
That's great. That's incredibly healthy.
It's just like you pick and choose, and if you want to bring something to the group, there's nothing stopping you, which is really fun. I would say Ed is one of the main arrangers, but that's just because of kind of what's in rep at the moment. And he's arranged everything for us, from this lovely Laura Marling song, a kind of singer-songwriter style, to some classics, to Radiohead songs. So I think another element which maybe goes back to when we were talking about technology is the people who have arranged for us recently have the opportunity to include this live looping that we use on stage, where it's recorded and layered up. So that's another element of our arrangements. And John's used that in his arrangements. Jo has used that in her songs. So that's really exciting too. Yeah.
When I opened the link to Goodbye England, I suddenly thought, oh gosh, the Swingles are not leaving England. Are they going to base themselves in Australia or something like that? It's a beautiful song, very simple video, but it's so fresh. The sound is fresh. I love the way you talk about that cross influence of the sound with jazz and that sort of clarity, and it was so lovely and refreshing to hear that. Tell us a little bit about your foray into TikTok, this new Swingles on TikTok.
Yeah, so TikTok is kind of a conundrum. I don't know if any of us really understand it.
You're showing your age when you say you don't understand it. That means you're getting older. Do you realise it?
Well, I am quite proud in the group that I'm the one who probably uses it the most, which means I'm definitely the youngest. I personally am quite addicted to it. I think we're trying all sorts of new things at the moment in the group, in everything, but one of those things is social media, because we can't escape it right now. I think it was a huge thing before, and then since lockdown, it's what people are just spending so much time on. So we really want to nail our exposure on social media accounts. So we do try, but the TikTok thing is kind of just fun and trying out new things. But we're using it to get our music out there as well. We're making these videos that are kind of on trend at the moment, where you layer up the arrangement and you add a part each time, and our songs really work for that, because that's how we sound anyway. That's how we layer it up. So yeah, it's a lot of fun, and we're hoping that, you know, people might spot us and say they're cool, because we think it's cool.
Absolutely, yeah. Do you have plans in the next year? Are there plans to get back on the road again? Are things just waiting to open up and then you'll be there? How does the future feel and look for you guys?
Yeah, it's just tricky, isn't it? Things are changing all the time, and we're also dealing with Brexit now. So traveling post-Brexit is tricky. We have a few EU passports in the group, which is great. But we're kind of...
You all need to get to the gig.
Yeah, we all need to get there.
Which reminds me, when you did the Leipzig thing, I sat in a van because I was there doing some workshops with the competition side of the... So I was doing a day of workshops with the people, the finalists of the a cappella competition. But I came in with a couple of young guys from the airport. And I said, you must be doing Swingles, but you're not all here. Oh, and I think hadn't half the group missed the flight or something?
Yeah, that was the time that we missed the connection.
Yeah, you missed the connection.
We were stuck in Frankfurt airport with nothing to do. But that was so funny. Touring.
So have you got some things to look forward to? I mean, are there some things that you know are going to happen in the future? How's it feeling about making concerts live again? I mean, is there anything definite that we can put in our diaries? Yeah,
I mean, I don't know about a date to put in, but things to look forward to. We are desperate to perform again, and we've spoken about how the Swingles sing on mic and with in-ear monitors. So we kind of see ourselves as the perfect COVID-friendly group, because we can stand as far apart as you like, because we can hear each other. Yeah, so that's kind of brilliant. So we're really hoping for that to come back. But one thing that's definite is the Swingle Singers 60th anniversary.
Wow, 60!
I know, and that's in 2023. Yeah. So it's a couple of years away, but we'd love to do something huge, because we can. Yeah. And we're kind of already in conversation about what to do for that already, but we just don't know. We'd love to have some gig dates and tour again, but we're just there's so much going on post-COVID, post-Brexit. What will we be allowed to do? Yeah. Gosh, well, we keep our fingers firmly crossed. Now, 2023. I mean, your dad must be heading towards a big birthday, isn't he, by 2023? No, I don't know how old he is. Yeah, maybe. Maybe, yeah. I just wondered. Yeah. Well, it's been great chatting to you, and thanks for giving us a real insight. I mean, you are taking on. Don't stop. Whatever happens with this COVID business, just keep going and keep creating beautiful things that you've been, this lockdown work is amazing and relevant. And I know things are difficult with finances and all the stuff that make life happen, but don't stop that creative thing, because you have such a legacy to kind of carry forth, and that whole next generation of Swingles is probably waiting and listening to your stuff, and being inspired and singing along, with your Goodbye England, with your lead, waiting to fill your shoes in 15 years or something like that. So keep going, Thank you so much.
And thanks for taking time this morning to join me in the Royal Forest of Dean.
Oh, it's been lovely, and
Yeah.
it's great getting to know you, and I wish we could hang out soon.
Yeah, well, I hope to see you in a concert, hopefully in this country. Maybe we'll meet again back in Leipzig at some point. I think they're hoping to get going again at some point. Anyway, thanks again, Midge.
Thank you
and
so
all
much.
the best.
Thank you, and happy birthday.
Thank you.
Thanks.